Hi, I'm Joe Tompkins, and this is my colleague Wade Hazel, and we've been working on the evolution of dizygotic twinning with Rick Smock, Bob Black, and Rebecca Sear. And we've taken a mathematical and simulation approach to this question. There are two types of twinning that occur in human populations: identical or monozygotic twinning, where a single ova is released and the zygote splits into two. We're interested in fraternal or dizygotic twinning, where two ova are released and they're independently fertilized and yield two offspring at birth. Dizygotic twinning is quite interesting from an evolutionary point of view because it varies in frequency across populations. We know that there's a heritable basis to the production of twins. We also know that there's a tendency for mothers of dizygotic twins to have higher lifetime reproductive success, even though the survival of twins is very low and the costs to bearing twins are very high. So we're interested in the evolutionary significance of dizygotic twinning and the question of whether the release of two ova represents the adaptive significance or the birth of two offspring, because these are two different parts to understanding the evolution of dizygotic twinning. Here you can see patterns of dizygotic twinning with maternal age across a range of populations. Firstly, of note is the very low rate. This is the percentage twins born in a population. Nigeria has a very high rate compared to these other populations. The other thing to notice is that there is an increase and then a decrease in the rate of dizygotic twin births in these populations. And it's understanding this change with maternal age that we've been interested in.
So we know that there are two factors that are involved in determining the twinning rate. One of those factors is obviously the probability of double ovulation. And that a function for the probability of double ovulation against female age is shown in the left side of the slide, the lower left side. And we have this increasing as a cumulative normal function. The second factor determining the rate of dizygotic twinning is the probability that a fertilized egg will actually survive to live birth. And these are the only two variables that influence the twinning rate. We can derive a fairly simple formula that predicts the twinning rate as a function of live birth rate and double ovulation rate to give a really good fit to the Nigerian data set, where the twinning rate rises and then falls with increasing age. So in this particular case, and in fact every population we've looked at, we have strong evidence that given a declining live birth rate with age, that the only way you can explain the observed pattern of twinning in human populations is for the rate of double ovulation to increase from relatively low numbers to above 50% by the time a woman enters menopause. So given this pattern, the second question we wanted to ask is, what's the adaptive significance of the kind of conditional age-dependent double ovulation we seem to have uncovered in explaining the twinning rates in human populations? We use two techniques to answer this question. The first is simulation and the second is mathematical modeling, and both of these support each other. In this slide, you can see the results of simulations. In each simulation, we were able to set the age at which women switched from single to double ovulation from anywhere to before the age of first reproduction to after the age of first reproduction. If the switching point from single to double ovulation is earlier than the age of first reproduction, then those women will always be double ovulating. And the results of that sort of simulation is shown in the magenta point. If, however, the switching age is later than the age of last reproduction, then those women in that simulation will have always single ovulated throughout their life. And that is shown by the gold point on the right side of the graph. All the blue points are simulations in which women are switching from single to double ovulation at different ages. So all of those points represent different conditional ovulatory strategies defined by the age at which the women switched from single to double ovulation. And what's clear from this graph is that the average per capita offspring surviving to 15 for these different strategies is maximized by a switching strategy at about 25 years of age. So these data support the hypothesis that the optimum strategy, given what we know about the probability of surviving to live birth and the survival probabilities of twin and singleton births from birth to 15, that the optimum strategy is to switch from single to double ovulation at about 25 years of age. What this slide illustrates are the results of our mathematical modeling. And instead of looking at the total number of offspring surviving to age 15 years throughout a woman's reproductive life, we're looking at the reproductive rate, so per capita offspring surviving per year for women at different ages. And what this slide illustrates is that for single ovulators, the reproductive rate is highest when they're young and exceeds that of double ovulators. However, as they increase in age, their reproductive rates decline at a faster rate than that of double ovulators, and at about 23 years of age is less than double ovulators. So this slide shows a clear fitness trade-off for reproductive rate for single and double ovulators. And the reason this happens is that young double ovulators have a high probability of carrying twins to term. Those twins have poor survival. So there's not much return on the investment of double ovulation in young women. However, in older double ovulators, there's less likelihood that those double ovulators will have a twin, and a greater probability that they'll have an offspring. So there's a greater payoff for double ovulating at old age. Whereas for single ovulators, reproductive rate is higher when young because they don't have to pay the price of having a twin.
So one of the intriguing things about understanding the evolutionary biology of twinning is to know where selection is acting. Is it acting on twinning or double ovulation itself? And the suggestion from our earlier work that Wade just described in this left panel is that it's on double ovulation. Now, it has been hypothesized that twins' births are a maladaptive byproduct of selection on double ovulation. And what we were able to do with the simulation was to ask that question by allowing in the simulation 2 ova to be released, but twins never to be born. So this would be a scenario in which losses during pregnancy were the same as for a double ovulator, but if 2 offspring were carried to term, only a singleton was born. So this is equivalent of a kind of over-insurance hypothesis test. And what we find then is that when we run the same simulation, the evolutionarily stable strategy is to switch from single to double ovulation before the reproductive life of the female. So the best thing to do if twins were never born is to double ovulate. And the contrast between this figure, where the optimum is to switch at age 25 or so, to here, where the optimum is to switch before the reproductive life start, tells us that indeed bearing twins is the maladaptive consequence of selection for double ovulation.
So the principal conclusion of our study is that dizygotic twinning is the result of an age-dependent conditional strategy. There are 2 major implications. Singletons born to late reproducing women likely had a sibling that died prenatally. This is an outcome of just the mathematics of double ovulation and the independent survival of the resulting embryos. And the second implication is that as women increasingly postpone reproduction, as is seen in many developed countries, twinning rate will increase, and in fact has been seen to increase already.